Hey guys, today we're going to learn how to take this ugly piece of aluminum foil and turn it into something beautiful like this. So your first step is going to be to pick your canvas. The best type of canvases are going to be wood, like an MDF board or birch wood canvas. Next, you're going to apply a coat of gesso to your canvases, as you can see I do here. Wood tends to absorb gesso paint, so you may have to do a couple coats just so none of the wood is peeking through. Quick reminder, if you click on the link in the description, you can get a material list to make this project yourself. Here are my fully coated canvases. Depending on how you want your final piece to look, you may do the next couple steps in reverse order if necessary. Here, I laid my foil down without gluing and then started adding my embellishments. For my embellishments, I used shattered glass. On one canvas, I put some green shattered glass, and then on the canvas on top, I put some purple shattered glass, and the bottom canvas on the right has blue shattered glass on it. As you can see, I laid it right in between the white part and the foil, just to add some extra bling to the project. Here I decided I needed a little bit more bling, so I went for it. After placing my glass where I wanted it, I mixed up about a half a cup of epoxy resin and poured it over the shattered glass. This doesn't need to cover every piece of shattered glass, because after it dries, you can shake off the pieces that didn't stick and use them for another project later on. You will want to let your resin cure overnight. Next, I cut off the excess foil from my canvas. You may have done this before putting the foil on your canvas, and that's okay. It's also okay if you have already glued your foil down to your canvas at this point. However, I switched those steps around. Using a foil or wood glue, stick your aluminum foil to the canvas. These two glues are the types that work best for this project. For the next step, you want to pick out 4 or 5 different alcohol ink colors to mix with your epoxy resin. The important part about this step is using translucent pigments. So if you have other pigments that aren't alcohol inks but are translucent, you may use those as well. But if it isn't translucent, you will not get the same effect as I've achieved here in this video. Mix up a batch of epoxy resin following the instructions on the bottle. Separate this resin into 4 or 5 little cups. Add a couple drops of each of your translucent pigment colors into those cups and stir well. This is where your own creativity comes in. Place your colors wherever you'd like them, play with it, and it usually turns out looking pretty neat. I will time lapse the next part of this video so you can see how the piece comes together when I pour my translucent pigments over the aluminum foil. Use a silicone spatula to move your colors around and blend. Here, I took some of my alcohol inks and poured them directly onto the epoxy resin that I placed over my foil. be careful with this technique because it can take over the piece a little bit, so don't use too much. Use a heat gun to blend your colors together and pop any air bubbles in the resin. Be careful not to leave the heat gun in one spot for too long, as this may burn the epoxy resin and ruin your project. To give one more quick reminder for this part of the project. A lot of times as resin artists, we don't know when to stop playing with our projects, and for this kind of pour, you want to make sure you stop when you like the way it looks. If it starts to get muddy, you could really ruin the piece. I was lucky enough to stop just in time, and it turned out really well, but it could have been a disaster. For my piece, I wanted to put white on the other side of the canvases, so I mixed up another batch of epoxy resin and mixed in some of this white acrylic ink. The first batch I mixed was pretty light. The resin was still kind of a translucent white, so I did end up mixing another batch after this that was more opaque, so you couldn't see through the white at all, and that's what I put on the final piece. But this is me putting resin on the other half of the piece and spreading it out, and then I let it dry, and you will see my final pieces in just a minute. I decided to put a little bit more bling on my canvas here, and I did put an extra layer of epoxy resin and translucent pigments on top of the foil part of my piece after it dried the first time. If you can see on top there, you can still kind of see some of the foil peeking through, and I didn't like that, so I wanted to add another layer, which is what you're going to see me doing right here, and then I promise you I'm done. And now the moment you've all been waiting for, the reveal. just wanted to stop and say thank you to everybody who's been watching my videos. I really appreciate it. So remember, please subscribe and like, and I'll be back with a new video soon. By the way, how gorgeous do these look on the wall?